Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. So in this video, we are going to be talking about how to choose which PA school to apply to. While it is true that it does only take one PA school to say yes to you, you only get one chance to go to PA school. You want to make sure that the place that is saying yes to you is a place that you're excited about, that you're inspired by, that motivates you, that you feel like you're going to be supported at, because it's going to be where you're going to end up spending the next few years. It's where you're going to be getting your education. It's an important decision because it's going to sort of lay the foundation for who you're going to be as a practicing PA. And like I mentioned in my previous CASPA video, applying to PA schools is expensive. So you don't want to just toss your money and your efforts towards programs that you are not excited about. You want to be intentional and make sure that you're choosing a school that's perfectly suited for you. In this video, I'm going to run through things to keep in mind when you're searching for the PA program for you, as well as certain things that I was looking for when it came to applying to PA school. I'm going to place timestamps at the beginning of this video if there's something in particular that you hadn't thought of before or that you're looking for more information on. But if you're interested to know all of the things that I think you should look out for when applying to PA school, then keep on watching. The first thing to look out for is the location of the program. So you're going to be spending about 2 years in PA school, and so you want to go to a place that you feel like is best suited for you. So this is going to vary immensely from person to person. Do you want to apply in your hometown where your support system is, and you don't really think that you would excel removed from that particular support system? Or perhaps you want to go to a rural area where you're going to be less inclined to go out on the weekends. If you know that that's your personality type, you need a quiet place to focus and to study and to keep on track. Or maybe you want to take these 2 years to explore a whole new city and a completely different environment and to just soak up a totally new atmosphere. If you don't have too many limitations on where you want to end up going, then you can sort of cast a wider net or apply to more places, and you don't have to be so particular in where you apply. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a place where you're going to spend 2 years of your life, so you want to go to a place that you are excited about. Another factor that you might want to consider when it comes to applying to schools that are outside of your state is in-state versus out-of-state preferences. So some schools prefer to have students that live in that particular state and plan on staying in that state after they graduate. One of the schools that I applied to was in a state that preferred to have in-state students and people who had the intention of staying in that state after they graduated. One of their supplementals was talking about how I planned as a graduate of that program to stay in that state and what I planned to do to improve that surrounding community. And this was a state that I had never been to, I had no true ties with. And so in the supplemental, I answered to the best of my ability, but obviously I couldn't convey that I really wanted to stay there and I was impassioned by the thought of staying in that particular area. So I didn't get an interview there. And had I known that they preferred in-state students and students in the surrounding community, then I probably wouldn't have wasted my money applying to that particular school. So I would recommend looking on the school's website or asking alumni of that program or even the forums and just kind of getting a sense of what kind of students that they're looking for, whether it be out of state or in state. That's something that I hadn't prepared for before applying, and so that's definitely something I would have gone back and switched up had I known otherwise. Another thing you're going to want to keep in mind is the length of the program. Most programs range from about 24 to 27 months, give or take a little bit. You have the first year, which is didactic year, and then the second year, which is clinical year. Some schools have more rotations or longer rotations, so it kind of differs. And then some schools, like one in Southern California, is about 3 years long instead of 2 years. This probably won't be a huge factor for most of you out there who are applying, but it might be something that you need to look into to make sure that the duration of the program is conducive to your own preferences and your own lifestyle. It might be something that you want to look into. Another factor to look into is tuition, because PA school is expensive. Cost is going to be a huge factor for most of you out there who are applying to PA school, and there's certain things to look out for. Generally speaking, a public program is going to be less expensive than a private program, so you're going to want to keep that in mind, and you also want to keep in mind that there are other costs associated with attending PA school. So this includes books, supplies, tuition, and housing expenses or living expenses. And so all of these factors are going to come together to give you your overall cost for attending PA school. Most people take out loans when attending PA school, and generally speaking, you're going to want to take out the least amount of loans possible. This is not the time to go out and get fancy dinners on the weekends or go clothes shopping or any of that stuff. You're going to want to be as fiscally responsible as possible during those 2 years, because down the line, that is going to be adding up very quickly. So keep that in mind and have a good sense of how much PA school is going to end up costing you, not only those 2 years that you're attending, but also in the years to come when you're actually paying off your student debt. That's going to be a huge determining factor in which school you attend. Another factor in choosing which PA program to apply to is whether or not the program has a cadaver lab. Not all PA programs have a cadaver lab. Some of them have what's called an anatomy table or an anatomage, and it's essentially like a huge iPad that simulates the human body. And there are drawbacks and benefits to both having a cadaver lab and having just an anatomy table. A lot of students that I applied with really preferred a cadaver lab and they really wanted that exposure, but this did not weigh heavily on my decision to apply to one PA program over another. I think if you were really intent on pursuing a career in a surgical field or a surgical setting, then it might be more incentivizing to apply to a PA program that has a cadaver lab versus not. Because I do think that there's undoubtedly an advantage in seeing human veins and nerves and tissue in real form, in real life, versus just in a virtual setting. Also keep in mind when it comes to cadaver labs with PA programs, some PA programs will allow you to dissect the cadaver yourself as a PA student, while others have what's called a prosected cadaver, which means that a professional comes in and pre-dissects the cadaver before you get a chance to kind of learn from the cadaver. So PA programs will have their cadavers prosected for several reasons. And the first is due to time constraints. Obviously, it takes a lot of time to dissect the cadaver, and PA students really don't have that much time when it comes to the didactic year. So it saves a lot to have it previously dissected. The second reason is to better learn bodily structures. So if you're dissecting and you're a novice and you don't really know bodily structures and locations too well at a certain point within the actual context of the human body, then you might ruin certain bodily structures or tissues unintentionally, and it could conflict with actually learning about these bodily structures. So there are definitely benefits to having it prosected, but if you really want to dissect the cadaver yourself, then this would obviously be something that you would need to touch base with the PA program you're applying to and make sure that you would get that opportunity. So the next factor that you should keep in mind when it comes to applying to a PA program is the GRE. Most schools do require the GRE, some do not. The schools that I applied to did not require the GRE, but if you want to apply to more schools or the schools that you want to apply to do require the GRE, then taking it is obviously a must, and I would recommend it actually because it does allow you to cast a wider net in which schools you do end up applying to. Generally speaking, there's just a cutoff. So usually schools will have this posted. I want to say 300 is just the general cutoff for most PA programs. And so you don't really need to go too far beyond that. You don't have to stress yourself out getting phenomenal GRE scores because most schools really don't look into this deeply. This is just one of the necessary evils, one of the boxes that you have to check off when it comes to applying to PA programs, but it's not going to make or break your application, so don't stress out about it too much. Another factor when it comes to applying to PA programs is the GPA, and this stresses everybody out, I know, but it is so important to have a really good GPA. Most schools have a minimum requirement of 3.0, for example, but you want to take a look at their averages for which students they are bringing into their program. Most schools on their website have the general stats of their students, and this usually includes GPA. So while high GPA is preferred, generally speaking, schools do take into consideration your overall trajectory as a student. And so if you're taking classes in undergrad and you got a 3.2 GPA, but you're continuing classes after graduation during your post-bac and you're getting A's all across the board, then this shows an upward trajectory, and that is definitely something that PA schools take into consideration when looking at you as an overall applicant. So don't lose hope. While some schools have a minimum GPA requirement, and keep in mind that the GPA is split up from overall GPA and science GPA, other schools have what's called a minimum grade requirement. So you have to have a minimum of a C or greater in your prerequisite courses for that particular program. So you're going to want to take a look at the websites and see what each school prefers and what they want from their applicants. And keep in mind that just because it says a minimum of a C doesn't mean that you should apply with only C's in all of your prereqs. It's probably not the best approach, but if you have 1 or 2 C's, then that is likely to be okay, depending on the rest of your application. So another thing you want to keep in mind when applying to a PA program is the class size. Most students learn better in a smaller class environment. There are definitely benefits and drawbacks to both a smaller versus a larger class, but the main thing you want to look for is what's called the student to faculty ratio. So the benefit of attending a program with a reasonable faculty-student ratio is that the faculty will know who you are, they know your strengths and your weaknesses, and it can really be there to support you and help you through the program because it's going to be vigorous, it's going to be tough, and you want to make sure that you have the good support and the good foundation foundation for doing well. And this not only includes your at-home life and the support that you have with your friends and family outside of PA school, but it definitely includes your support system in PA school as well. So keep that in mind. Another determining factor when it comes to which school you want to apply to is your clinical rotations. And there are certain things that you want to kind of look at when it comes to clinical rotations. One thing when it comes to rotations that you want to keep in mind is how many elective rotations are available at the PA program that you're applying to. So some PA programs have one, some have two, and this is going to make a difference for those particularly who want to experiment during clinical rotation year. Maybe there's certain specialties that you think you might want to go into, but you're not entirely sure. Having an elective rotation is really beneficial for those who maybe don't know what specialty they want to go to, and they want to experiment with different specialties that they might not get the opportunity to work in after PA school. I personally think that the more elective rotations that you have available to you, the better, but maybe you don't. Maybe it's not important to you, but that might be something you want to look into. Another thing when it comes to rotations that you want to keep in mind is the location of the clinical rotation sites. So some of the schools that I applied to had rotation sites only in California. That's great. You know, if I plan on staying in Southern California especially, that would be awesome because I can network during my rotations and kind of get a sense of where I might end up working after PA school. Other PA programs that I applied to had rotation sites all across the US, and then there was one that had global rotations. So you're going to want to keep this in mind. You know, if you want to do rotations just locally, that's great. If you want to do rotations all across the US or even globally or overseas or South America and have that type of opportunity, then this is something that you're going to want to consider when applying to PA school as well. So another thing that you might want to consider when choosing which PA program to apply to is whether they have a pass-fail system or what kind of grading system they have available and in place. Having a pass-fail system really emphasizes and embraces a non-competitive environment in the PA program and within the cohort, with classmates, all of that. So I personally really appreciate the pass-fail system. I think it's great. It allows for students to collaborate and not go against one another when it comes to grading and become competitive. So that's something that I looked for, and it might be something you want to consider as well. So aside from the class size, another thing that you might want to consider is if they have any small group learning or training regarding clinical skills or even exam prep. One of the things about a few of the schools that I applied to that I really, really liked is that they had an opportunity to take an exam with a small group after you take it solo. So how they had it formatted was that you would take the exam by yourself, and then afterward everybody gets together in small groups and they retake the exam together. And I thought that this was a really cool way to teach one another and learn from one another and do better and kind of really solidify certain concepts. So this might be a feature of a program that you would really like. I know that was something that I really liked about some of the schools I applied to, so it might be something worth asking about. So another thing to consider is what kind of formatting the curriculum is in. So some schools have a modular system. So the modular system is something that I was really looking for in a PA program because I feel like it's a great way to kind of get comprehensive understanding of each individual bodily system. And it was a great way to utilize didactic year, which is so brief. It's only a year, and to get as much information as possible in a way that really makes sense and clicks. So that might be something you want to consider when it comes to choosing your PA program as well. Another thing you might want to keep an eye out for is the job opportunities that are presented by the PA program after clinical year. You might want to see if the program that you are thinking of applying to helps students to find jobs after they graduate. That might be an important thing to some of you, especially those who want to stay in a particular area. So some faculty at PA programs might have some information regarding job opportunities, and they might present it to the PA students that are at that particular program. They might also send email updates with job opportunities as well. So these are things that you kind of want to keep an eye out for and ask the PA programs about directly if that's something that's important to you. The last thing that I would recommend really looking out for when it comes to applying to PA programs is their PANCE pass rate. I recommend taking a look at the past 5 years for that particular program and getting a sense of how well they're preparing their students for the board exam. And another thing I recommend sort of noting when you look at the PANCE pass rate is whether or not they better prepared their students for the PANCE 5 years ago versus now, and whether they have an upward trajectory and pass rate, or if they're kind of tapering off and not doing as well. If you're finding that they're having a worse PANCE pass rate over the span of 5 years, then maybe you'd want to ask the PA program what they're doing to improve their PANCE pass rate, or ask them why this may be. So one of the schools that I applied to had a PANCE pass rate in the 80% range. I think it was like mid 80s, high 80s percentage-wise. And I found out that they were actually implementing a 3-month PANCE prep program at the end of their curriculum, at the end of clinical year, to improve those PANCE pass rate scores. And so you might want to ask the program directly what they're doing to improve the PANCE pass rate. I wouldn't judge their PANCE pass rate right off the top. I would take into consideration not only the 5-year overall PANCE pass rate averages, but also ask them directly what they've been doing to kind of improve their percentage. So those are my tips as far as what to look for when it comes to applying to a PA program. I know it's really daunting. There's like 250 plus PA programs out there, I think, now at this point, and so it's kind of hard to see which PA programs might be the better fit for you. But those are definitely things to take into consideration when it comes to applying to PA school, and what factors really impacted my decision on what schools I wanted to apply to. Leave a comment below. Let me know what it is you're looking for in your PA program. Maybe it's something I mentioned in this video. Maybe it's something totally different and something that I haven't thought of, and that maybe somebody who is applying this year or in the future might learn from. If you did find this video helpful, I do make a video once a week, so feel free to subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can comment below or DM me on Instagram. And from that, good luck to all of you guys who are applying this cycle. CASPA just opened up, which is really exciting. So good luck, keep working hard, and I will see you guys in the next video.